Hello, avid readers, book nerds, or casual observers. Welcome to the Read Along, brought to you by the Lit Round Table. I'm Anna.
And I'm Joseph, and this is our read-through of Dragons of Autumn Twilight by Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman, and today we're going through chapters 18 through 22, which is the conclusion of Book 1.
Yes.
Of the whole story.
Well, yes.
This story.
There are technically 3 other books after this one.
For some reason I thought there were more than that in my head.
Well, there are more Dragonlance books than that, but there are 3 in this series.
Gotcha. Okay.
Possibly a 4th one. There's a 4th one that has like a similar naming convention, but I don't think it's listed as one of the books.
I see. Cool. Well, this was a slightly lighter reading load. I feel like it was one less chapter, wasn't it?
Maybe.
But it felt like it was easier to get through. But there was also just a lot of stuff that happened, so it might have just moved quicker because there was a lot of high stakes stuff in these chapters.
Yeah, and it moved quickly. Like, it read fast. Yeah, so chapter 18 was called Fight at the Lift, Bupu's Bupu's Cure for a Cough.
Bupu's Curry. Bupu makes a mean curry.
I don't think she would. I think she would make a really yucky curry.
It would just be hot water with a dead rat in it. That's
or a dead lizard or something else that she had been carrying around for a long time.
Just like mud. Just mud.
Yeah. Gross.
Yeah. So we kind of started off with kind of just an action sequence, them fighting some Draconians on the whole lift system. They're like being carried in big pots with chains.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is very reminiscent of Attack of the Clones, like when they're on Geonosis.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's like the big vats
that
they're like hauling around, and yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was envisioning, was like a big vat like that. Which I don't know if that's totally accurate. I think maybe, it wasn't, I don't know, not inaccurate, but not like super accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So our group is just trying to make their way to the dragon's lair with Bupu as the guide.
Right. So she's leading them to the high bulb fudge the first.
The Great.
The Great. He has many titles.
Yeah.
So yeah, this chapter is like leading the way there. I did have like one big note on this chapter, and that is that I'm not really sure about the physics. Because
of what?
Because the pot that they're fighting in is descending.
Oh, I have no idea. Yeah, no, I have no clue.
But just hear me out. The pot's descending, and they reach out and grab the chain. And then to speed themselves up, they loosen their grip on the chain, right? But the chain would also be going down. And I think that it's like, I think that the pot would have been falling faster than their weight, right? Right? Is that a physics thing where the heavier object will hit the ground before the lighter object? Obviously, if you drop a marble and a feather, the marble will hit first.
No. That's literally the opposite of how physics is. Weight doesn't matter with gravity. If you drop a small marble and a big marble, they will both land at the same time.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm 100% sure.
I was really bad at physics, so I'm going to do a little test here on my desk.
I didn't even take physics, and you did.
I know. You're right. Okay. But it still doesn't make any sense, right? Like, the idea that, like, them letting go of the chain is going to make them fall faster.
I just want everyone to know that I got to watch Anna on FaceTime drop, what is it, like 2 pens or something?
No, they're 2, like, paper clips of different sizes.
Yeah, I just scientific method at work here today at the Lit Round Table Read Along.
Mrs. Ashby. Who's not Ashby anymore. Whatever your new name is. If you're listening to this, I am sorry. I took your class at 7 a.m. as a senior,
Uh-huh.
and I honestly probably should have failed.
I like to imagine you're like gonna end up going back through your books now that of like sections you've already written and like rewrite a bunch of like
No, I mean,
physics things.
I don't enjoy like trying to think through the physics of that kind of scenario, so I just don't do
Yeah.
that. So I'm not in danger of that at all.
No, you're fine.
But it's still like
But
reads
yeah, for
funny,
this,
right?
it was still confusing. I still it's still kind of fuzzy in my mind how that whole contraption worked. I imagined there was like a pulley at the top of the ravine or whatever they were being
Right.
like dipped down into, and that like the chain was on the pulley and attached to the pot too. And so like if they let go of the chain, they moved down, or if they loosened the grip on the chain, you know, by their own weight, they went down. So I don't know.
Okay, I'm gonna go back on my physics thing because you cannot tell me that if you drop a bowling ball and a feather at the same time, they will hit the ground at the same time, because they won't, because the resistance is different.
There's drag on the feather.
So what I'm
The feather has
saying,
drag.
so what I'm
Yeah.
saying is that a single person falling will have more drag on it, which I don't think is the right word, but will have more resistance
Wind resistance, yeah.
than the big pot with multiple people in it. That's bigger.
I don't know. I think it's I don't know. I yeah.
You're annoyed that I'm trying to like make a definite claim here, but it felt very weird to me.
No, I'd say it read kind of weird.
Okay.
I wasn't too hung up on it, I guess. It didn't like
I was, because I was trying to figure out how this was physically possible. That they're like trying to fall into this pot or like climb into it, which like that would have made more sense if they were like trying to lower themselves on a rope that was already lowering, because that's like those things in the airport that you walk on that's also moving.
yeah.
Like that
The walkway
that
things.
makes sense to me.
Okay.
But like them just like letting go of the chain to fall faster did not make sense to me.
Well, it's because they were using like if you're holding the chain, your weight is attached to the chain, like all of your weight is actually on that chain that you're holding.
Yeah.
And I think there's more than one of them holding it, but if there was
Yes.
only one of them, it was Karaman. But
No, Cameron was already in the pot.
okay. But anyway,
He was like the first one.
you would loosen your grip on the chain and you would fall faster. Because your strength isn't holding the pot anymore. It's just gravity.
Maybe. You know what? Thankfully,
I'm also not there. I would draw you a picture, but I can't because I'm not there.
thankfully, this is not something that will ever come up in my real life. I do not ever intend to get myself into this
I hope
kind
not.
of position.
I really hope not.
No. If I get into this kind of position, I'm just dead.
Gosh.
There's no catching myself. Just
I hope you're not trying to go to a dragon's lair in real life.
well, that too. Also dead
Yeah.
because of that reason. But
Yeah.
anyway, the
Or
physics
meet-
were funny.
Or meet with someone with the name like whatever Fudge the First the Great. Like that's pretty sketch, so probably avoid that.
Yeah, I will. He is super sketch. But yeah, so anyway, thank you, listeners, for listening to me divulge that I am not very good at physics. But if you read this chapter, you would also be confused.
Yes.
As they are like making their way, they get to one point where they're like, is there another way? To like they're out of the pots now, right? Like everyone's trying to figure out how to get to the high fudge or high bulb fudge the first, whatever.
Yeah.
And Upu has a very heroic moment where she opens a trapdoor with magic.
Yeah.
Which
I love Boo Poo so much.
she's lovely. She is such a weird little creature, but she's lovely. And she calls Raistlin pretty in this chapter, which I just thought was so sweet. It just made me laugh.
She's really cute.
But she opens the door by like pulling out this rat and presenting it to the door, and then the door opens, and Taz is like, "No, it's because she stepped on the foot release."
Like there's a pressure plate that she stepped on, and that released the door because he's like the lockpick rogue guy. So he like
Right.
just he knows how to get into these complicated locks and stuff.
Yes, and he witnessed her step on it.
Yeah,
Yeah, just very funny.
and it's imagined that she probably just tripped and fell on it at one point, and it opened, and she had a dead rat in her hand. So now she just thinks that she has to have a dead rat with her to open this door.
So yeah, which is just
Classic Gully
adorable.
Dwarf.
Just adorable.
Classic boo poo.
And Raceland basically tells Taz to shove it and keep it to himself.
He's so protective of boo poo.
He really is. Like which just becomes even more evident as we go through these chapters. Like how
especially when we get to the very end. Yeah.
how much he just like adores her in this like weird magician brother way.
Yeah.
And so they're like going through this tunnel, which is like super nasty. And Tass is the first one through, and he lands in this like, well, we don't really realize that he landed in the substance, but because everyone else comes out and there's like white powder all over the place.
Yeah.
And it turns out that it's flour. And poor Tass is just covered head to foot in flour, while everyone else is covered in green slime from
funny
the
moment.
sewer.
Funny moment.
Yes, it was great. Can you imagine like having a D&D session where you get to like craft that into what happens to the characters? How fun would that be?
Just wait. Next week.
I would love that.
Or whenever our next.
Yeah, who knows? No, I would love that.
That's the first chapter, right?
Yeah.
18?
Oh, we didn't talk about what Boo-Poo's cough cure is. Because Raceland, of course, is coughing all the time. And she feels bad for him, so she offers him a cure. And while she's trying to find the cure, she finds an emerald in her bag. Which Raceland is like, wow, that's beautiful. And she's like, do you want it? And he's like, yes. And so Raceland takes this emerald from her. Which is a little shady.
I mean, I'm pretty sure like emerald dust is a really valuable spell component in D&D. So I'm not surprised that the mage wants an emerald.
Yes. Well, and Tass is also like kind of eyeing it, and Raceland is like, no, man.
Well, of course.
This is not for you.
Okay, let's be real. Tass has already lifted off Raceland by now. Like,
well, maybe.
He has already stolen that.
I don't know if he actually like would dare to steal something from Raceland. I think Raceland.
He totally would.
You think so?
He doesn't feel fear.
That's true. That's true. He doesn't. You're right.
Yeah. You'd totally do it. That emerald's Tass's already, unless it comes up later. But it's in Tass's possession until proven otherwise, in my mind.
That's fair. But then she finds the actual like cough cure, and it's this dead lizard on a string she wants Raceland to wear. And he very politely tells her no.
It's like lizard jerky.
Yeah.
It's super dried out. It's like a husk.
Really gross.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then chapter 19 is called The Broken City, High Bulb Fudge 1, the Great. High Fudge
the first.
The Great.
In the audiobook, they said, High Bulb Fudge the First, the Great. There was like a pause whenever Boo Poo. That's kind of how she sounds too. We go see High Bulb. We go see High Bulb Fudge the First.
That's
the Great.
Kind of a funny, almost Southern accent.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, and so
you pretty. Yeah, it was very cute.
She's adorable, and she gets increasingly more frustrated with our group as they travel together because she feels like she's communicating very clearly with them, which of course she's not really, but she gets very frustrated by all their questions. Yeah,
because Candace keeps pressing about the dragon, and she's like, "You want to go to Dragon?"
And he's like, "No."
I mean, why you want to go Dragon?
Yeah.
It's really entertaining. But they're making their way through the broken city, right? That's the first chunk, and they make it to where High Bulb is, and they like go through this dark, dank alleyway that's creepy and gross, and they get to a door, and Boo Poo knocks twice.
Oh my gosh!
And here's knocking twice in return, and then she gets annoyed and knocks twice again. and then there's another 2 knocks. And then me knock 4 times, you open up. And then the person on the other side is like, you knock 6 times. And then they just can't agree on how many times that she knocked because nobody knows how to freaking count.
Right. And so then they just like knock back and forth a bajillion times, and it's so funny.
And then eventually she just forces the door open. So it's not even like you
Well,
don't
didn't she
even
like
need
push the door and she goes, I'm gonna knock 2 times and you're gonna let me in. And then she closes the door and knocks once.
Yeah.
And then they let her in and they go, by the way, that wasn't 6 times or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
It's just very funny.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
I laughed really hard.
We also learned in this chapter that Goldmoon has a weakness.
Oh yeah, she's afraid of heights.
Like, very afraid of heights. And it makes her and Riverwind get into this whole fight because she's annoyed that he revealed her fear to Tanis. Which I'm just like, lady, what is wrong with you?
Get over yourself.
Every
You're
time they
fine.
get into these little fights, I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys are...
So dysfunctional.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he just like throws gasoline on the fire.
Oh, yeah.
Like he like doesn't even try to like smooth things over. He just totally aggravates it even more just for the sake of being a troll. So I'm like, are you guys like, are you sure you love each other? Like
That's what I was thinking this whole time. Until one of the later chapters, and I was like, oh, they do love each other, but oh my gosh, it had to come to this.
Yeah.
And we see the dragon again, which...
Oh, was that before they got to Highbulb?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, so
they
as
actually
they're...
get to the secret knocking, actually.
There's like this big open plaza that they have to cross, and everyone's super antsy about it because there's no cover or anything. And then Bupu's frustrated because nobody wants to cross the plaza. But then they also see the dragon walking around with a draconian talking about like the state of affairs in the Broken City.
Yes.
Basically.
Yes.
Yeah, so it was very interesting. The way they do dragons, they're like, it's not a way that I've ever seen dragons done in a fantasy thing where they're like commanding forces, you know. Dragons are usually pretty independent in all the things that I've come across. So it's interesting.
And she's like trapped in the city. Like she wants to go do other things, but for some reason she's not allowed to.
Yeah.
Which is weird. Okay, so then they get into like meet Fudge, and they get to hear we get to hear his interesting backstory that he's like found the dragon's lair but can't like return to it because he drew a map, but he doesn't know how to read his own map.
Yeah, because they're so dumb.
So he's like waiting for a hero to show up to kill this dragon for him so that he can figure out where the treasure is again.
And then this group shows up and he's all excited, like, oh, they're going to go kill the dragon.
Yeah.
But then they're like, oh, no. We want to steal from the dragon. We're going to try everything we can to not encounter the dragon.
Yeah. Like, we'll also steal something for you. Don't worry. But no dragon killing. Sorry.
Yeah.
But like while they're in the like throne room with Fudge, there's like all these very garish paintings and nude statues that the Gully Dwarves have painted over that makes Karaman blush, and like it's just very funny.
Because they thought that just a marble statue was boring, so they painted it to be more lifelike. So they like colored in the hair and like the skin tone and everything, and apparently it was a little too realistic.
Yes, which is just so funny.
Yeah.
And
so when they're discussing this with Highbulb, he basically decides, well, if you're not going to kill the dragon, I guess I'm just going to sell you out to the dragon. And
he does.
Yeah. For brownie points with the big bosses.
Yeah.
So, we do know that going in, although the group does not.
Right. So I had a moment in this next chapter, which is chapter 20, the Highbulb's Map, a spellbook of Fistantilus.
Fistantantalus.
Thank you.
Or something.
Another name that I can't say.
Yeah.
I got very confused in this chapter when they were talking about the plan because I don't think they actually told us explicitly what the plan was, and then all of a sudden Raceland was talking about going on his own with Upu, and Cameron was like, "No, I want to go with you." And I thought that Raceland was like abandoning the group, but that's not what was happening. He was going
No,
to
it
go
was
like set off fireworks.
they didn't explain it
Okay,
super in depth. I think it's just assumed that Raceland was going to go be a distraction and try to
right.
lure the dragon out while everyone else looted the treasure trove. So, but we
Yeah.
didn't like know how he was planning on doing that.
Okay.
But it's revealed the reason why another reason why Raceland didn't want to like he volunteered himself. I mean he and why he didn't want his brother to go with him was because he needed his brother to dig through the treasure to find this spell book that he was looking for, which was one of the reasons he wanted to come here in the first place.
Yeah.
Typical
Mage
mage,
behavior.
like yeah, always obsessed with more spell books and leveling up.
Mm-hmm.
So Karaman begrudgingly agrees to look for the book for him.
Yeah.
So
Yep. We also find out that Goldmoon has apparently never apologized or asked for forgiveness ever.
oh yeah, that was weird.
That
I
was
was like, are you
so
telling me
weird.
you've never said the words I'm sorry?
That's
What's
what
wrong with you?
that's what they said, and I was like,
Yeah. I get you were Chieftain's daughter. You're probably raised to think you're always right no matter what. Like, okay. But you're telling me that you've never said I'm sorry, even to like your parents? Like when you were
right,
a kid, your parents never made you apologize to them?
right,
Weird.
very weird. And like we got a little more of their backstory, but just made it even muddier for me. I was like, wait, I'm confused on their timeline now. I thought I had it figured out, but now I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So that's a little frustrating. Like I would like their backstory to be like clear.
hmm It's,
Um,
yeah, it's, I hope that they kind of clear it up a little bit later on, maybe in the book two,
yeah, maybe.
but it's still, like, I get the overall timeline, but I feel like there's still some missing elements that we don't know about yet. So maybe it'll get revealed.
Yeah.
Um, so that was chapter. What was that 19? Or was that 20?
That was 20.
Okay,
Oh,
so
but
21.
I had one more note in chapter 20. So chapter
Oh,
19, we find out that Gold Moon is like deathly afraid of heights.
yeah.
And in chapter 20, they have to face like a great height again, and she's suddenly like not afraid anymore. Like she has no issue with this new height issue.
I didn't notice that.
I was like,
It could
what
be.
is
I mean,
happening? But they
I would
also
probably just.
they also like rode on the Pegasi and like did all these other things without ever mentioning that she's afraid of heights.
Well, she was asleep for the Pegasus
Not when she got
stuff.
on it. They didn't fall asleep
Maybe
until they were up in the air.
maybe she got conked out real quick.
Maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
I still enjoy the book. Don't get me wrong.
hmm
These are just like weird character things, and I'm like, they threw that thing in and then they forgot about it
Yeah, maybe.
like right away.
They
Which
did not write these chapters at the same time.
yeah, which like I've done that, so I get it. But
yeah.
um, I'm not trying to be super critical. I guess is what I'm saying. I'm just like noticing like
Oh,
weird
sure.
incongruencies.
It's just things that sometimes if they don't match up, it's like, wait, I just read this and now it is that. That makes no sense. You
Right.
want there to be consistency.
Right. Yeah.
So,
So chapter 21 is the sacrifice and the twice dead city.
hmm so this one is the one where all the craziness goes down.
Yes. And it
Um,
starts with Tass talking about death,
mhm. I
which
was
is
like,
very
oh,
fitting.
you're screwed.
Yes.
You're so
Um,
dead.
he's talking about like death being the next great adventure, and it felt very like Pippin and Gandalf in Return of the
hmm
King. Like,
And Flint, he was talking to Flint about it, and Flint, I love how they're like, they can't agree that they actually really like each other, but they
yeah.
do. Like they totally love each other.
Oh, yeah.
And Flint, like it says that he pictures Tass like dead on the floor, like not moving and cold, and he like gets really choked up about it.
And like
And
changes
he's
the
like,
subject.
if I have to if I have to share my afterlife with you, I'd rather not, or whatever. I don't
Something
remember
like that.
exactly what it said.
Yeah.
It was like, yeah. So it was
Like
just really funny.
it's like in Ever After when he's like, then I will simply deny you the crown and live forever.
Yeah, exactly. That was the vibe. That was very cute. It was like, oh, you guys, you're good friends. You like
Yeah.
each other.
You care
Stop
about
pretending you hate each other.
you get drunk when you're walking on bridges and get into all kinds of trouble and save each other, but pretend like you
Yeah.
hate each other, and it's very cute.
hmm
Yeah, so they get into the like room and the dragon is there, obviously.
Waiting for them.
With a captured Raceland. And Bupu
Under
is just
claw.
like huddled up on the ground like a
Terrified.
mess.
Yeah.
Poor thing.
And they're like on an altar in the middle of the room with like a bunch of jewels and treasure and stuff. And yeah, she has Raceland under a claw and basically is like, don't try any magic or you're dead. And also you guys don't try anything or he's dead. So it's just kind of a standoff. And Tanis
Give me the staff.
Tanis proceeds to beat himself up
Oh
in
my
typical leader, like stereotypical leader, like, oh, it was my plan. Oh, it's my fault that this is happening. And it annoys me when characters do this. And it's just because, and it's not like, because people do this in real life.
I was like,
so like I
does
get
it annoy you because it's too real? Like it's not enough escapism for you?
No. It's that I wish that more people realized it's not always your fault when a plan goes south. It's the bad guy's fault who's threatening to kill your friend. Like, instead of blaming yourself, maybe pin that frustration on, I don't know, the one that's going to try to murder someone. Like, you were just trying to do the right thing and it was a good plan. You even said it. You were like, it was a good plan. This shouldn't be happening. It's like, yeah, you were double crossed. It's not your fault.
Right. Yeah, it's actually the
It's actually
High Bulb's
Fudge. Yeah,
fault.
High Bulb Fudge the First, the Great. It's his fault.
Yeah. Which like presumably he did that because he wanted to force them to have to kill the dragon.
Yeah,
Like,
or I guess
I don't think he wanted the
and then if
dragon
they
to
didn't,
win.
and then if they didn't win, and the dragon did, he would still,
Come out on top.
because they would, he would maybe have some favor with the Draconians
Yeah.
then.
It was actually a very smart bit of backstabbing on his part.
Yeah, he's smarter than most gully dwarves.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, so that was. And we had like this whole thing where Goldmoon is like super resigned to just like sacrifice herself here. And she like
Yeah.
doesn't really give Riverwind a good goodbye. She just like tells him to stand where he is, and then she gives Tanis a hug and like tells him the plan and like whatever, that she's gonna sacrifice herself. She goes through the line of heroes and then she gets to Sturm and like has Sturm walk with her.
yeah, that was an odd choice to me as well.
Yeah, because like Sturm doesn't like her. Or Riverwind.
He doesn't like many
He
people.
really only likes Tanis and
He's pretty
Flint.
stingy. And even then, him and Tanis butt heads sometimes because he also is kind of like Harriman, where he just wants to fight everything because he's a knight.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
But so he like is looking for the discs, which I like imagine being CDs, but metal.
Yeah. Yeah. They're also made out of platinum, so like they would
Right.
even maybe kind of look like CDs. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. And like Goldmoon telepathically communicates with Raceland, which was weird because like that's never been a thing before.
Right.
But
Because he was preparing one last spell, which we never got to know what it was. I wanted to know what his last spell would have been,
Yeah.
but it's fine. He was preparing one last Hail Mary spell, and he hears a voice in his head, which relaxes him, and it's revealed that it's Goldmoon.
Mm-hmm.
And she holds out the staff in a what was it?
Stance.
Yeah, in like an epic, anime stance.
Yes.
And the staff breaks and like erupts into this blue light, which turns into scorching flames, which start to consume the dragon and everyone in like a 20-foot radius
Except Raceland.
or something. yeah, Raceland manages to get out.
And so does Boo Boo, but not Gold Boo.
Well, I think it was only affecting
The
the
things that
caster
were
and the target. Like,
because Sturm describes like seeing the fire go up the staff and like start to consume Gold Moon, and he wanted to like
yeah,
make her drop it, but then he couldn't. I don't know.
I think he probably realized that if he did that, it would stop working and the dragon would be pissed and alive and
Yeah.
kill them all.
Yep.
But she managed to one shot the dragon
Right.
and totally took it out, like disintegrated
Also
it.
started to take out the palace because everything starts to crumble around them.
Right. Typical.
And she's like gone, disintegrated.
She's a black smudge on the ground.
Yeah.
And Riverwind is beside himself.
Like he is just like kneeling on the smudge and wants
Crying.
to stay there and die.
And Tanis, and they're all running out. Tanis is like trying to get him to leave and ends up taking a rock to the head or a piece of ceiling.
Yeah.
And gets knocked out.
Has to carry him out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, either I stay here in self-pity and die, and let this other guy die with me, or I do the right thing and carry him out. So he decided to live and take Tanis with him.
Right.
So.
And there's this whole thing where Raceland was still trying to find the spell book and wanted Karaman to help him, and Karaman was like, "Are you kidding? We got to get out of here.
We're gonna die."
And then Raceland finally like agrees to leave. Whatever.
Yeah.
He's such a turd.
Yeah. And he manages to because on the way out they have to fight a bunch of draconians, of course, in the collapsing city because they're all trying to escape as well. They're all trying to clamber into the pots to get up the ravine and everything. So they have to fight their way out, which it felt kind of like Lord of the Rings and the before the Bridge of Khazad-dûm when like the goblins are all like it was very much that kind of vibes.
Yep. So this is actually getting into chapter 22, which is the last chapter, Boo-Boo's Gift, an ominous sight. So they're in the middle of this fight. Riverwind is like checked out, and then all of a sudden, not checked out.
Yeah, he goes ballistic. He doesn't even have a weapon. He goes bare hands, rage mode on these draconians and kills quite a few of them. Although he takes some damage too, but Raceland casts sleep again, knocks a bunch of them out. He also, later on, when they actually fight their way into a pot, there's some draconians with wings that are flying down to try to like knock the pot and make it fall and kill them all. And he casts some spells to try to, which I'm like, don't you guys have arrows? Can't you just shoot into the pot? Why do you have to fly down there? Tell me you don't have bolt cutters, just cut the chain.
Some like weird inconsistencies.
But either way, the Raceland casts some spells and, well, he's like on the brink of his limit, and Karaman's telling him to stop it because he's like coughing up blood at this point and exhausted.
Yeah. And
he's casting all these spells to get these draconians to leave him alone, and like he takes one of them out. There's one left, but the draconian like knows he's a magic user, but he can sense that he's a very powerful magic user and runs away. So I feel like Raceland, in casting all these spells, like kind of bluffed his way out of it because the draconian didn't realize that he was like on the brink of passing out.
Right.
But the bluff paid off, and the draconian flew away and didn't mess with them. So they managed to escape.
Yes. Oh, we skipped like a very important little thing that happens, which is when they're getting into the pot, or like when they're getting away, and Sturm is like, "Okay, Raceland, it's your turn. Get in." And Raceland just like looks at him, and like runs off for a second, and comes back with Boo Boo. He had to go get her, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, Raceland does have a heart."
How dare you forget Boo Boo?
It was just very sweet.
That was very cute. Yeah. I love their dynamic. I want to see like fan art of Raceland.
Oh my gosh, me too. Ugh. I bet it's out there.
That up later. Yeah.
Yeah, so Sturm is like in charge now because Tanis is super
unconscious.
Not with it. And even when he is conscious, he's like very injured.
Yeah. So when they do manage to get out and Tanis does finally wake up, it's funny. It's like Sturm's first words are like, "I'm so glad that you're back." Because I think that I think Sturm really hated being the leader.
Yeah. Yeah.
For as much as he complains about like the plans that Tanis has, it's like, dude, you would not be able to do this.
Yeah. Yes. So
So
there's
that
like
was
a
funny.
yeah, there's like a Pass of the Dead moment, like where they're walking. They even call it Pass of the Dead. So they're getting to the temple and they're like going through the Paths of the Dead, and Tanis is like feeling the weight of all of this, and he like has everyone go ahead of him, and he
Hmm.
just like takes his time, and he can hear Riverwind like cry out in the temple,
Yeah.
and then he finally gets into the temple, and lo and behold, Goldmoon is alive.
Deus Ex Goldmoon.
Yes, absolutely. But she has the pendant that the statue is wearing now, and the statue has the staff back, and she's like a
Yeah,
full blown cleric now.
I guess.
Um,
I feel like she just got teleported at the last second.
mm-hmm.
Like that must, you know.
Yep.
So, I mean, it felt. I don't know. I'm still kind of torn. Like I didn't want her to die because it felt.
Because
I
she's
don't
the
know.
only female in the whole party.
But she's not even that well written either. So
No,
it's
she's
like
really not.
maybe she could die and be replaced by a cooler female.
You know who I want to
But
show up? I want Lorana to show up because I
the
remember
one
her
that shows
being
up
cool.
in book 2.
I don't know when she
Yeah.
shows up. I just remember her being cool.
Yeah. But yeah, Gold Moon dying, and again, I like the barbarians are the characters that I'm like the least attached to, and so
Yeah.
I was like, okay, she's gone now. She went out like a champ, taking out the dragon. Like that's pretty cool. Like that's a
Mm-hmm.
cool send off, you know. And like there was some resolution with like the staff. Like I didn't expect the staff to come back, but now they have the discs and they can continue their like completing their mission and whatever. And more hijinks ensuing later on. But then she comes back, and I'm like, okay, so there were actually no stakes, and she just got to one shot a dragon, just because.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It was maybe story things that maybe I would have done differently or wish would have been done differently.
Yeah.
But she's back now, so Riverwind can stop being depressed. So
Yeah. They can start fighting again, I guess.
yeah, they can keep being dysfunctional and magically healing people and because that's
Mm-hmm.
not OP. And like one-shotting dragons and healing people that are
But she
burnt
doesn't have the
chicken
staff
nuggets.
anymore, so maybe she'll be less OP now.
I thought you
But
said
now
she had
she,
the staff back.
the staff is with the statue now.
Oh,
But
like it's
Goldmoon has the
switched?
pendant. Yes.
Oh, I must have missed that when I read it.
Yeah.
But I got you.
Yeah.
But like but my favorite part of
Mm-hmm.
this chapter was the last part.
Mm-hmm.
And I was saying before this that I can't wait to talk about how the real MVP of this entire chunk was Bupu.
Mm-hmm.
Because Raceland knows that he can't take Bupu with them on this
Yeah.
journey. Flint would kill her, probably, but because he hates gully dwarves. But also, it's just super dangerous, and he doesn't want her to get hurt. So he's trying to convince her to go back with her people, and she's really upset, and she's like crying, like "You're gonna miss me." And then it was funny in the audiobook. He just said, "No." I thought he was just gonna end there. Oh, you'll miss me. You'll miss me. You'll be sad when I'm gone. No. Like that's exactly how it sounded in the
Oh
audiobook.
no.
And it was just like, you take that back. And he was like, I will take happiness in knowing that you've returned to your people. And I was like, oh, okay, you
Yeah.
saved it. Good job.
Yeah. Which,
But
there's an advantage to reading it. You can see that there's more of the dialogue coming.
yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, but as like a parting gift, Boo-Poo's like, you want gift? And she like rummages through her bag and he's like remembering the dead lizard. I'm pretty sure she offered that to him again for the cough too, but he declined it
did.
naturally. And
Because
he's like
after all those
remembering,
spells, he's like coughing up a storm. And she's like, are
yeah,
you sure you don't want this?
yeah. And she's like, how about this? And she's digging through her bag and he's like mentally preparing to shoot her down because he's remembering like the dead lizard and the dead rat and like the
Mm-hmm.
bag probably smells atrocious and like
Mm-hmm.
all this stuff. And then lo and behold, she pulls out a blue book with silver etchings on the front, which is a spell book of
Fistandantilus.
Fistandantilus. Fist and Dandelions. It's a spell book of, not to be confused
For
with
the
the
salami
salami
knights.
knights. Yeah. The fist and dandelions. The fist and that's
Whatever.
fist and dantilus.
Yes.
And he is shocked and very grateful, and it kind of broke his brain for a second because it was like one of the things that he wanted. And I think he was probably bummed that he couldn't get it, and then she got it for him, and he was probably thinking like, this was the most efficient use of that spell that I have ever had
Of
of
friends.
casting. Yeah. Like, I got so much out of that spell.
Yeah.
Also, I want to know when that spell's going to wear off, because it can't be permanent.
Well, I think it wore off of all the other ones. I think Boo-Poo just like genuinely likes him.
Oh, that's kind of cute. Like,
Yeah.
the spell wore off, but she's still like hung out.
Yeah.
That's funny. Anyway, so he got the spell book, and he's excited to learn new spells, and I'm excited to see him cast more spells than Sleep and Featherfall. So I'm ready to see some cooler stuff come out of Raceland's fingertips.
Yes.
Yeah. So then it kind of ends on an ominous note, or a sad note, because as like Raceland calls over to Tanis and says, "Look," and Tanis looks in the distance, and they see like glowing and smoke in the distance. And
Solus
Tanis
is burning.
Yeah, Tanis starts to freak out, and Raceland says Solus is burning. So
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's going to take us or launch us into book 2 of dealing with Solus
Whatever that
being
means.
attacked by Draconians. I'm assuming. I don't know.
I guess we'll find out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the end of chapter 22 and the end of book 1.
I noticed something, and I've been noticing this as we've been reading, but this book is like written in third person omniscient, where like you're getting like an overview of all the characters, and you can pop into any of their heads at like any time, which is kind of unusual anymore. Like, it was more popular, obviously, when these books were being written, but also like the Narnia books are kind of like that, and Lord of the Rings is kind of like that.
Because we even pop into Highbull, Fudge the First, the Great. We pop into like all of them at some point.
Yeah. And but like when it switches to Raceland's point of view, we like just stay with Raceland for a while.
I hadn't noticed that, but
Yeah. So look for that like as you listen to the next section. Maybe it's different when you're listening versus reading it, but
I do like that we get to hear Raceland's like thought process, because he's a very secretive person. Everyone else kind of just word vomits, and well, not necessarily word vomits, but like
Cats
they kind
word
of wear
vomits.
their that's true. A lot of them wear their emotions on their sleeves, and they aren't shy about sharing their opinions. But Raceland is very like reserved and kind of plays his hand close to the chest. So I appreciate that we get more glimpses into his mind.
Yeah.
Or that they're longer breaks.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
yeah.
Cool.
So I'm really looking forward to book 2.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited to see what happens next.
Yeah, more characters be introduced, more crazy developments to happen, more Flint and Tasselhoff shenanigans.
Always.
Yeah. More Caramon being protective of his brother, and his brother being mad, like, don't baby me. I'm more powerful than you.
Yeah.
So yeah. So what's our chapters for next time?
So next time we are moving into book 2, which means we're reading chapters 1 through 4 of book 2.
Okay.
So,
Sounds good.
yeah.
Well, until then, I suppose, happy reading.
Yeah. I'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.